Hi my darlings, I'm Sophie Darling and welcome to my React Series 1 episode 14. And if you've watched episode 13, there were parts of my React to episode 13.5 intersected, so you may have already seen my background. Did I change my entire background round because of one YouTube comment? Yes, I did, because I'm easily influenced. But also I think it looks a lot better and their suggestion was correct. It does look nicer. Yes, the feng shui in my room looks horrible right now, but on camera it looks really cool. You get to see my little nerdy Pokemon corner, because who doesn't love a little bit of Pokemon? I made those cross-stitch gym badges, which I'm really proud of. I love cross-stitching. I'll have to show you my cross-stitch Pokedex at some point. It is somewhere in my room. I'm just not entirely sure where it is located, but over lockdown, I started cross-stitching a 16-bit Pokedex and it was fire red. And I was really proud of myself. I didn't get that far. I think I did 16 of them and then I kind of went, this is a lot. And then I got into streaming shortly after, so then I didn't have the time to do cross-stitching because I was streaming. I had all sorts of hobbies over lockdown. I'm sure loads of people did, so if you had any interesting hobbies that you suddenly developed during the COVID lockdown, please let me know. Please comment below. I'd love to know what weird and wacky things that other people decided to do with their time. I just want to say a big, massive thank you to my Patreon and YouTube members for supporting my content. Because of you guys, I am able to still do this full time. So it's super, super appreciated. Thank you so much. And I really don't know what to say other than I am so incredibly grateful that you guys enjoy my content to the extent that you want to support me either via YouTube memberships or Patreon memberships. It's just wild to me. I'm so blown away by the love and support. Thank you so, so much. We currently have a Patreon exclusive series running for 4 weeks. It is coming to YouTube, but in 4 weeks' time. So the Patreon exclusives are only for 4 weeks. So 4 weeks from the first episode release, because I will release episodes in succession, and it is Freyren. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. I'm probably not. My pronunciation is probably horrendous right now, but it is currently up on my Patreon channel, uncut, and it's been a lot of fun to watch. It's a really cute anime. I'm loving it so far. So if you want to see that on Patreon, you are more than welcome to, but it will be coming to YouTube edited in December. But I know that a few people are going to be like, but why is it a Patreon exclusive? So YouTube is my job along with Twitch. I am a full-time content creator and I have to have incentives to keep people wanting to support on Patreon that is not just content that is already on YouTube. So having a Patreon exclusive for a short period of time gives me the opportunity to offer something unique to my Patreon supporters that they get to see before anybody else. And it also allows me to focus on the ongoing series that I already have on YouTube. It gives me time to create a backlog of content whilst also having that time to edit, because editing takes a while. One video can take me 2 hours to edit, and I do this all myself. Other React channels may have an editor, they may have more than one person working on videos. It's just me. It's unfortunately just me. I am so grateful to you guys for A, supporting the content, B, liking, subscribing and commenting to help boost me into the algorithm, and also all the lovely comments that you guys have been leaving. It's just been so nice to see that you guys have been enjoying watching my reacts, enjoying listening to me theorize. I'm gonna stop yapping. We're gonna get into series 1 episode 14 and hopefully learn about the basement, because it keeps hinting at the basement. I want to know what's going on in the basement.
おい、さっさと答えろ、クズ野郎。お前がしたいことは何だ？調査兵団に入って、とにかく巨人をぶっ殺したいです。
He looks borderline insane.
悪くない。
His eyes are crazy.
エルヴィン、こいつの責任は俺が持つ。上にはそう言っておけ。俺はこいつを信用したわけじゃない。こいつが裏切ったり暴れたりすれば、すぐに俺が殺す。上も文句は言えんはずだ。 俺以外に敵役がいないからな。認めてやるよ。お前の調査兵団入団を。
おい、本当なのか？人間の味方した巨人がいるって。
ただの噂に決まってる。奪還は失敗してウォールローゼのやつが大量に逃げ込んでくるかもしれん。そんなことになったらたちまち食料不足じゃないか。
なあ、もしかして人間に味方した巨人ってローゼのやつと一緒になって攻め込んできたりするんじゃないだろうな。
こいつはすげえことだぞ。俺たちに味方する巨人が現れたんだ。もしかしたらウォールマリアだって取り戻せるかもしれねえ。行ってみよう、行ってみよう。救世主だ。
So he is very well about to become the symbol of humanity.
民衆はいつの時代も無責任なものだ。
中央への反乱に利用されそうですな。
その前にエレン・イェーガーは我々憲兵団が処分する。調査兵団の変人どもには渡さん。
Oh, so they think he's going to be used as a form of rebellion against the nobles. Interesting. So there is discontentment in the class system already brewing.
総督に敬礼。
熱いな。
駐屯兵団司令官のあなたが一調査兵団長の私と個別に会うのはあまりよく思わない者もいるのでは。
ほう、噂通りの堅物らしいの。何、朝の散歩中偶然出会っただけじゃ。憲兵団もエレン・イエーガーを引き取りたいと言い出したのは知っとるか？
はい、昨日通達がありました。そのために審議が開かれると。
調査兵団と憲兵団、どちらにエレンを引き渡すか決定権はザックレーに委ねられた。
ザックラー、相当のダリス・ザックラーですか？
憲兵団、駐屯兵団、調査兵団、3つの兵団を束ねる男だ。
Oh, so the big,
奴の
big
判断基
boss.
準はただ一つ。利害の割合。人類にとって利か害じゃ。もし害を押しと見れば迷わずエレンを処分させる。それこそその場でエレンを殺させたくはない。だが我が駐屯兵団には残念ながらエレンの力を恐れる者が多くての。わしにできるのはせいぜい憲兵団に賛同せぬことぐらいじゃ。
It's interesting because the military police are
勝算はあるの
only
か？
worried that
あります。
he's going to revolt with the lower
ですが
population and
提案の
take
用意
them
がありま
out.
す。うまくいくかどうかは審議の流れ次第かと。
So they're doing it to protect their own
つま
skin.
りは出たとこ勝負じゃな。
壁外調査を主とする我々は常に出てからが勝負ですから。
お堅いだけの男でもなさそうじゃ。良い散歩ができたよ、スミス団長。
エレンの真偽何の？
よくわからないけど、エレンをどうするかってことだと思う。
どうするかって。
多分生かすか殺すか。
Oh. She didn't realize that, did she?
ミカサ・カーマン、アルミン・アルレルト、いるか？
はい。
午後からの審議に証人として出廷しろとの命令だ。
Probably to assess whether he is a threat to humanity or not. I feel like this is going to be a very biased tribunal.
すいません、便所に。
さっき言ったばかりだ。
水をください。
おい、立場をわきまえろ、化け物め。
It's not going to be a fair trial.
化け物か。確かにそれは間違いじゃないんだろうけど、ここまで拘束するほど怖いのか、俺が。まあ無理もないけど、俺にも訳がわからないんだから。まだ殺されてないだけマシなのかもしれない。そういえばあいつらは一切俺を怖がったりしなかったな。今 何してる？他の奴らもどうなった？
I really feel sorry for Eren because this is all against his will.
もう少しの間だけ辛抱してくれ。我々が何とか話をつけてみる。
あれからもう何日経った？俺一生このままなんじゃ。
Like he didn't ask for this, you know? Jesus Christ.
君がエレンだね。大丈夫？変わりない？ごめんね、待たせてしまって。でもやっとここから出られそうなんだ。ただこれをつけなきゃだけど、私は調査兵団で分隊長をやっているハンジ・ゾエ。彼は同じく分隊長のミケ・ザカリアス。彼はそうやって初対面の人の匂いを嗅いでは鼻で笑う癖がある。まあ多分深い意味はないと思うね。これでも分隊長を務めるほどの実力者だ。
Did you do it to psych people out?
ごめん、無駄話しすぎた。もうついちゃったけど。うん、大丈夫。むしろ説明なんてない方がいいんだから。
ちょっと
勝手だけど我々は君を盲信するしかないんだ。健闘を祈る。
Oh, it's the tribunal.
審議所？俺は審議所の地下にいたのか？
前に進め。
Gareth Stackley, leader of the Free Military Forces, makes the final decision. This just seems so like it's just going to be so biased because it's one person making this decision, and it's essentially whoever can either convince him or buy him determines the result.
そこにひざまずけ。
They couldn't even let him sit properly down on the floor. That has to be the most uncomfortable
そもそもこれ
position
は
ever.
一体何を裁く場なんだ？お前ら。
では始めようか。エレン・イエガー君だね。君は公のために命を捧げると誓った兵士である。違わないかい？
はい。
異例の事態だ。この審議は通常の方が適用されない兵法会議とする。決定権は全て私に委ねられている。君の生死も今一度改めさせてもらう。
やっぱり。
異論はあるかね？
ありません。
I mean,
察しが良くて助かる。
what
単刀直入に言おう。
objection can he have?
やはり
It's just going to be used
君の
against
存在
him.
を隠すことは不可能だった。君の存在をいずれかの形で公表せねば、巨人とは別の脅威が発生しかねない。今回決めるのは、君の動向をどちらの兵団に委ねるかだ。憲兵団か、
That wanna kill him.
調査兵団か。では、憲兵団より案を聞かせてくれ。
はい、憲兵団師団長ナイル・ドークより提案させていただきます。我々はエレンの人体を徹底的に調べ上げた後、速やかに処分すべきだと考えております。彼の巨人の力が今回の襲撃を退けたことは事実です。しかしその存在が今内乱をめぐる波紋を呼んでもいる。
Wow.
なのでせめてできる限りの情報を残してもらった後に我々人類の英霊となっていただきます。
So selfish.
そんな必要はない。奴は神の英知である壁を欺き侵入。
あれはウォール教の。5年前は誰も相手にしてなかったのに偉くなったもんだな。
Are we going to see the intersection of religion and politics, which should not coexist? Religion should never influence politics, ever. Looking at you, America, right now. I live in a country where religion has influenced politics, and it did not go well. It did not go well. So the fact that they raised significantly in power suggests that religion is influencing politics, which is always biased to promote their own beliefs over the well-being of humanity and the well-being of other people, because those that don't believe in their religion are mistreated and abused. Hence why politics should be completely separate from religion through and through. Just my opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but that's okay. I just feel like politics should be its own thing and religion should not have any relationship with the political system. But this is so biased. This is so biased. Poor Eren. Like, literally poor Eren. This is incredibly stacked against him.
では次に調査兵団の案を伺おう。
はい。調査兵団13代団長エルヴィン・スミスより提案させていただきます。我々調査兵団はエレンを正式な団員として迎え入れ、巨人の力を利用してウォールマリアを奪還します。以上です。
もういいのか？
What do you mean?
はい。彼の力を借りればウォールマリアは奪還できます。何を優先するべきかは明白だと思われますが。
そうか。ちなみにその作戦遂行はどこから出発するつもりだ？ピクシス、トロストクの壁は完全に封鎖してしまったのだろう？
ああ、もう二度と開閉できんじゃろう。
東のカラネスクからの出発を希望します。そこからシガンシナクへ。一からルートを模索して接近します。
ちょっと待ってくれ。今度こそ全ての扉を封鎖すべきじゃないのか。超大型巨人が破壊できるのは扉の部分だけだ。そこさえ頑丈にすればこれ以上攻められることはない。
What kind of tribunal is this that people can just speak up without
これ以上お前らの英雄ごっこに付き合ってられないんだよ。
よく喋るな、豚野郎。扉を埋め固めてる間、巨人が待ってくれる保証がどこにある？
Oh, I love
てめえらの言う我々ってのは、てめえらが超えるために守ってる友達の話だろ。土地が足りずに食うに困っている人間は、てめえら豚どもの視界に入らねえと。
Yes, Levi!
我々は扉さえ封鎖されれば助かると話しているだけだ。どうしたのかこの不届き者め。神より授かりしローゼの壁に人間風情な手を加えるというのか。貴様らはあの壁を人知の及ばぬ神の偉業を見てもまだわからない。
彼らのせいで壁上を武装することさえ時間がかかったんだ。
A gift from God. Bro, what an insult to the people that built the fucking wall. What an insult. Oh my god, I hate him already.
知事と権力だけは持ってるからな。タチが悪い。
司祭様は黙ってもらおう。
How is this allowed to happen in a tribunal?
静粛に。個人の主義主張は別の場所で訴えていただこう。イエガー君、確認したい。君はこれまで通り兵士として人類に貢献し、巨人の力を行使できるのか？
はい、できます。
だが、トロストク防衛戦の報告書にはこう書いてある。巨人化の直後、ミカサ・アッカーマンめがけて拳を振り抜いたと。
He doesn't remember
制
doing
御
it.
できなかったことは覚えてないんだ。
報告書に嘘を書けっていうのか？この事実を隠すことは人類のためにならないんだよ。
ミカサ・アッカーマンは、
はい、私です。
She's gonna have
巨
to
人
tell
化
the
したイエガ
truth,
ーが
isn't
襲い
she?
かかったのは事実か？
ごまかさずに答えないとエレンのためにならないぞ。
Oh, she's between a rock and a hard place.
はい、事実です。
やっぱり巨人は巨人じゃ
You
ないか。
don't know shit.
俺がミカサを殺そうとした？
しかし、それ以前に私は2度、巨人化したエレンに命を救われました。1度目は、まさに私が巨人の手に落ちる寸前に巨人に立ちはだかり、私を守ってくれました。2度目は、私とアルミンを榴弾から守ってくれました。
Yep.
これらの事実も考慮していただきたいと思います。
お待ちください。今の証言には かなり個人的感情が含まれていると思われます。ミカサ・アッカーマンは幼い頃に両親を亡くし、イエーガーの家に引き取られたという事情があります。さらに我々の調べではその時の経緯について驚くべき事実も見つかっております。エレン・イエーガーとミカサ・アッカーマンは当時9歳にして強盗誘拐犯である3人の男を刺殺している。
Yeah, which was completely
いかに
justified.
正当防衛とはいえ根本的な人間性に疑問を感じざるを得ません。果たして彼に人類の命運、人材、資金を託す。
Wait. So anybody that commits anything in self-defense is suddenly not human anymore? Also, who cares if it's based in her own emotions and feelings when it is the legitimate truth and it is fact that he did save Mikasa on 2 occasions? It's fact, it's truth. She also admitted that he attacked her, so it can't be that coloured in personal bias. And also his personal bias is being allowed, his personal bias is admissible in this tribunal in that he is straight up admitting that we want to kill him because he might be used as a reason to spark civil war and an uprising against the elite, and it puts their position at jeopardy. So why is his bias being allowed to be admissible in this tribunal, but Mikasa's isn't? Make it make sense.
べきなのかどうか。
そうだ、あいつは子供の姿でこっちに紛れ込んだ巨人に違いない。
あいつもだ。
Oh, so now they tell him
人間かどう
Mikasa.
か疑わしいぞ。
そうだ、念のために解剖でもした方が。
待ってください。俺は化け物かもしれませんが、こいつは関係ありません。無関係です。
信用できるか。
事実です。
会うってことはやっぱり仲間だ。
違う。
Oh.
違います。しかしそちらも自分たちに都合のいい憶測ばかりで話を進めようとしている。
なんだと。
大体あなた方はまずいか、巨人を見たこともないくせに何がそんなに怖いんですか。これ以上黙った方が。
No. Keep speaking, Aaron.
いや、言ってやる。思ってること全
You
部。
tell them they've never seen a
力を
assassin.
持ってる人が戦わなくてどうするんですか。生きるために戦うのが怖いって言うなら力を貸してくださいよ。この腰抜けどもめ。
何？
いいから黙って全部俺に投資しろ。
They are protecting their own skin.
構えろ。
Levi. What the?
これは持論だが、しつけに一番効くのは痛みだと思う。今お前に必要なのは言葉による教育ではなく教訓だ。しゃがんでるからちょうど蹴りやすいしな。
What the fuck? Why is this being allowed? He's not even under their command.
リヴァイ。
なんだ。
危険だ。恨みを買ってそいつが巨人化したらどうする。
Or is he proving a point? I don't think he's being mean for the sake of... I don't think he's being horrible for the sake of being horrible. I think this is to prove a point that he's not just going to turn on people when he's angry or hurt. I think Levi's trying to make a very brutal point here that like he is able to control that side of him. It's just horrible to see.
何言ってる。お前らこいつを解剖するんだろ。こいつは巨人化した時力尽きるまでに20体の巨人を殺したらしい。敵だとすれば知恵がある分厄介かもしれん。だとしても俺の敵じゃないがな。だがお前らはどうする。こいつをいじめた奴らもよく考えた方がいい。 本当にこいつを殺せるのか。
総統、ご提案があります。
なんだ。
エレンの巨人の力は不確定な要素を多分に含んでおり、危険は常に潜んでいます。そこでエレンの管理をリヴァイ兵士長に任せ、その上で被害調査に出ます。
エレンを伴ってか。
はい。エレンが巨人の力を制御できるか、
Was it part of their plan all along?
人類にとって利がある存在かどうか、その調査の結果で判断していただきたい。
エレン・イェーガーの管理か。
To prove that Levi
できる
can
のか、
keep him under
リヴ
control?
ァイ。
殺すことに関しては間違いなく、問題はむしろその中間がないことにある。
Oh, Makaza's gunning for him. Levi, watch
結論
yourself.
は出た。
まったくひどいね、本当に。痛いだろ？
少し。
で、どんな風に痛い？
すまなかった。しかしおかげで我々に君を託してもらうことができた。
はい。
効果的なタイミングで用意したカードを切れたのもその痛みの甲斐あってのものだ。君に敬意を。エレン、これからもよろしくな。
はい、よろしくお願いします。
なあエレン、
はい。
俺を憎んでいるか？
いえ、必要な演出として理解してます。
ならよかった。
しかし限度があるでしょ。歯が折れちゃったんだよ。ほら、
拾うな、気持ち悪い。
俺だって大事なサンプルだし。
エレン、こういう奴らに解剖されたりするよりマシだろ。
一緒にしないでほしいな。私はエレンを殺したりはしない。ねえエレン、ちょっと口の中見せてみてよ。
Wait,
もう
it's
歯が
regenerated.
生えてる。
What? So the blood that he's been injected with has, I guess, has like completely altered his bodily structure because the tooth's growing back. That's insane. That's insane. I had a feeling that Levi wasn't just going to do it for the fun of doing it. It was to prove a point because it just kind of came out of nowhere. We haven't seen a lot of him, but the parts that we have seen of him, he's very caring about people in his command. I don't doubt that he could be that brutal, but only when it's necessary. So I had a feeling that this was more than what it needed to be. I am really curious what's going to happen with Mikaza and Armin. I can see Mikaza trying to join Survey Corps. I'm not sure about Armin. I don't think Survey Corps and Armin would go hand in hand. I feel like Armin would be better working with Pixies. I'd love to see him kind of like take a leadership strategist role under Pixies with the walls. I just don't think that role would suit him being in the Survey Corps. Maybe I'll get proven wrong, but I'd love to see him work with Pixies, and I'd love to see Mikaza join the Survey Corps because I think she is more benefit being close to Eren because she doesn't seem to really function well. And Ian recognised that. Ian realised that Mikaza was not going to function on the mission unless she was near Eren, and that Mikaza has this innate desire to protect Eren no matter what, and that she is more of a benefit being near Eren than she is not being near him. She is more detrimental being away from him. But I'm really excited now to see how this plays out with him being part of the Survey Corps. I'm glad that the tribunal went the way that it was supposed to go. It is interesting that we have seen sort of the development of the inner circle coming into play. So I think that is going to show a lot more now, especially there is mention now of religious factions having gained significant power to the point that they can speak up in the middle of a tribunal and it be allowed without condemnation. We've seen that the merchants are out to save their own skin, and we've also seen that military police are worried of a civil uprising from those in the lower walls, which is indicating that there is discontent brewing with the system that is in place. I think it's important that I engage with the material at hand. I feel like if I didn't do that, I would also just be a shit reactor. So the first topic I really want to delve into for episode 14 is about classism and rebellion. So we have seen in episode 14 that Eren and his Titan abilities have become seen as a symbol of resistance and defiance against the class system. There was a really interesting comment in my episode 13, and I was really kind of annoyed at myself that I didn't pick up on the symbolism of Eren holding the boulder as an Atlas figure. And I'm kind of really annoyed that I missed that because it feels like it should have been really overtly obvious that it was supposed to be akin to, as Atlas holds up the world, Eren is holding up this boulder and in a sense is holding up humanity because he has become a symbol of humanity's resistance and fight against the Titans. So humanity is the weight on his shoulders, and he even makes a comment that he feels like he is being crushed. And yes, that could just be read as a literal, this boulder is heavy, he's being crushed, but it could also be seen as symbolic. So the idea of being crushed is both literal and also figurative. So it could have a literal meaning, which it does in terms of the weight of the boulder is literally crushing his body, but it also is the weight of the expectations that humanity has now placed on his shoulders, and that he now has to bear that pressure going forward. It's really annoyed me that I didn't talk about that in detail, but hey, it is what it is. Sometimes we don't pick things up, and that's okay. We're human. I'm not a robot. I'm not AI. I'm not gonna pick up everything, but that's okay. The biggest takeaway from episode 14 is the genuine fear by the military police and the elite. And by elite, I mean nobles, not the elite soldiers. But elite can also mean those with the power and means to control society, which is also nobles. So you would also call the nobles the elite class. There seems to be a genuine fear that Eren may be utilized by the lower class to rebel and turn against the upper. So the military police have such a fear of this uprising that they willingly propose executing him for the good of humanity. But this in itself is deceptive language. I don't know if anyone else picked up on that, but it is incredibly deceptive. We know that such a statement is not so much to do with protecting everyone. Rather, it is about protecting the interior wall and the upper nobility, emphasizing the clear class divide. So when the military police present the proposal to execute Eren, they present it as it's for the good of humanity. It's to protect humanity. It's to protect the people in general. But we already know that that's not true, because we already saw beforehand the military police saying that Eren will be a pawn in the revolt against the center, indicating that discontentment is brewing to the extent that open rebellion is feared. And that fear is leading it's not a fear of Eren becoming a Titan and turning on humanity, is a fear of rebellion and what that might mean for the upper class, and in turn the military police who serve the upper class and their desires and their wants. Of course, at this point in the series, I am not entirely sure as to exactly why rebellion is brewing. You probably are. You probably have watched this show 20 plus times. I'm still in the trenches of season 1, so I don't know. The first half of the series hasn't really delved into the policies that have been put in place to cause this aggravation, but the show does a great job of giving hints as to the lack of respect that the upper classes have for those of the lower walls. So we know that the walls are divided by class. The poorer you are, the less luxury you have to avoid the Titans. You are forced into the outskirts where your life is at risk on a near daily basis. The richer you are, the more protected you are, because you are in the center. It's much harder for the Titans to get to you. So in episode 1, we also get a glimpse into life in the lower walls, and the way that it's represented is a very cramped environment. You can see how squashed and built up the areas are in comparison to that of Wall Cena, where there is larger space between buildings and ample room for families to live. And I know this point is going to get people's back up, as it has done before when I've commented on it, but I believe that the division of class is best emphasized by the lack of respect given to the refugees of War Maria and the forced conscription to take back War Maria. None of these people were trained. They were rounded up by the military police and they were forced to embark on a suicide mission. There was no hope of succeeding. A lot of people look at this with optimism of, yeah, but they could have taken it back. They couldn't have. There was no intention for them to take it back. It was a means of population control. It was a means of population culling. I've seen people time and time again attempt to justify this act as necessary due to the looming famine. The fact that the vast majority were refugees, though, indicates that they are not seen as having the same rights as other people in Wall Rose and Wall Sina. They are not given a chance to live because they are seen as disposable and lesser than the lives of those around them. Whether you believe the operation to take back Wall Maria was justified in order to prevent famine, you have to look at the broader picture rather than what is being explicitly told to you. This is where media literacy, guys, is crucial in terms of looking at imagery. We have to understand that the characters are obviously going to defend what happened as justified because there is a bias. That bias comes from either serving in the military itself or having survived due to the sacrifice of the refugees. So when they defend it as a necessary good, this in itself is misleading and hides the truth of what is actually ongoing behind the scenes. If we think back to episode 5, between the meeting of Pixies and the Lord, the peaceful atmosphere that surrounds the Lord in his home indicates that he has never known true fear of what it means to be threatened by the Titans. However, what is most striking is the extortionate amount of food laid out within the scene. Far too much food for the number of individuals present. What this indicates is that food is not a concern, but rather what is a concern is innate human greed. We see the Lord sweep up numerous pastries in his hand, eating them without care as to when his next meal will be. What is implied in this imagery is that food is not a concern in Wall Sina, and it's safe to presume that it was also not a concern even 5 years prior. What this indicates is that the refugees could have survived if Wall Sina had been open to cutting back on their lavish lifestyle in order to share resources with Wall Rose to help accommodate the influx. Yet their innate greed is what led to the looming famine, and as a result, 20% of the population was culled. Pixies calls the culling a sin that all humanity must bear the weight of, emphasizing that he feels a great sense of guilt over what was done to the refugees of Wall Maria. Whilst some of you in my comment section have called this a necessary evil, I would argue instead that the language used in reference to the event and the later imagery of Wall Sina serves to portray this act as abhorrent and wrong. So classicide is considered a form of genocide. Michael Mann, a sociologist, states that classicide is considered as premeditated mass killing that targets a part of the population defined by its social status, whereas genocide is the mass killing based on ethnicity. So the biggest difference between classicide and genocide is one is to do with ethnicity and is referred to as ethnic cleansing, and one is to do with social status and is class cleansing. The reason why I believe that what happened was a form of classicide is due to the lack of regard for the lives of those in the lower classes and the blatant way in which they are quite literally thrown to the Titans in a mission that was never going to succeed. It was orchestrated from the very top with two aims: to protect the interior circle and their way of life, which allows them to continue to live a life of luxury without being forced to share with those they deem inferior. And the second is to cull the population of those they deem inferior and undesirable because their lives are not deemed as equal to that of themselves. You can disagree with me, but I think it's very blatant from the language and imagery that we see that the class systems that are being promoted and the militaristic society that so easily culls large members of a social class purely to uphold their own greed, is not presented as a necessary or even justified evil, but as a disgrace to humanity, freedom, and liberation. The show is clever in forcing watchers to question their own moral and ethical beliefs, but at the same time, I think the writing is very explicit on its stance in relation to the culling, which is that such an act can never be truly rationalized or justified and is a crime against humanity. Referring back to episode 14, we see a rich merchant of Sina siding with the idea of killing Eren. Again, this is an indication of innate greed outweighing morality and common sense. His priority is himself and the wealth he has accrued. He even speaks up to condemn someone's illusions of grandeur, which is hypocritical considering he values his own well-being over that of humanity as a whole. As Levi, my little socialist king, says, his wish is only to protect your friends who help line your pockets without looking at the bigger picture, which is those in Wall Maria who are struggling to survive because there is a lack of land to sow and no help/resources are being given to them by Wall Sina, who are thriving and well off and surviving perfectly fine. Whilst the upper class fear Eren and see him as a threat to their established order, the lower classes look at him as a potential saviour to take back the land that was lost, a golden opportunity for humanity to fight back against the Titans. He's not seen as a threat, but a symbol of hope in a world which so often feels cruel and hopeless to those who have nothing. In times of darkness, people often turn to forms of belief as a means of support, and Eren becomes that for the lower class who feel rejected and looked down upon by those of Wall Sina. However, this also leads into my point of belief and its intersection with politics through the Warlists. So in episode 14, we were introduced to the Warlists, and Eren notes that these people were never taken seriously until 5 years ago. What this indicates is that in the aftermath of such a traumatic event, people have turned towards something higher than themselves or humanity as a whole in order to find a sense of peace and understanding. This also occurs in contemporary society. People who have experienced significant trauma will often try to find explanation through religion as a way to try and find meaning to their experience because they cannot fully come to terms with what has happened to them. Finding religion after trauma can also be a coping mechanism. It's a way of healing in which the traumatic event is presented as being God's will and design, and it removes the need to think about choice and personal responsibility. Trauma can also challenge our religious beliefs and can cause people to actually pull away entirely, as it can shake our moral and ethical understanding of what is right and wrong. But episode 14 illustrates how, in the face of uncertainty and fear, people need to find something bigger than themselves, bigger than humanity, to provide an explanation or understanding of the world around them and its innate cruelty. Hence, the Warlists begin to gain significant power and presence within Wall Sina. What really interested me was to see how the writing critiques the intersection of religion and politics. The Warlists believe that in altering the walls, it's akin to blasphemy against God, that these walls are God completely ignoring the fact that they were designed by humanity as a form of protection against the Titans and did not just magically appear one day. The Warlists have gained enough power to openly speak during a military tribunal with no repercussion, which indicates how they are becoming involved in the political landscape, which poses a significant threat to humanity as a whole. This significant threat is that they condemn the alteration to the walls, which includes fixing repairs, rebuilding parts to make them stronger, and attaching new weaponry. The more power they gain, the more influence they have, which could lead to humanity being at significant risk overall to the Titans if the walls are left to fall into disrepair, simply due to the religious beliefs of a vocal minority. Whilst I am for the freedom of speech and believe that everyone should be able to preach about their religious beliefs, whether I agree or not, I do believe that the show is critiquing the very real concern of religion impacting the political system to the extent that it leads to inequality and undermines democratic processes by benefiting only those who abide by that religious affiliation, whilst condemning those who do not. It serves to bring up larger questions of inequality when religion forms a part of politics, as the same human rights are not granted to all. In the intersection between religion and politics, there is a greater chance of bias and prejudice. And in the case of the society that we are being shown in Attack on Titan, a very real danger to humanity as a whole by wanting to ban repairs and developments to the walls that saved them from the Titans. Armin even comments that thanks to them, it took ages for us to even mount weaponry on the walls, with Rico adding that they have a lot of support and power, which makes them difficult, implying that their influence has already infiltrated the political infrastructure. They refuse to allow any changes to them, even for defensive purposes, even if that means the destruction of humanity as a whole. What it shows too is how the intersection of religion with politics only benefits the few and not the many, showing it to be an inherently polarizing system and contributes to discrimination whilst ignoring individual autonomy and exclusion of those they believe undesirable in that their beliefs do not align with their own. What's very clear is that the show is critiquing the influence that religion can have on politics to the extent that it worsens rather than benefits society, as the protection of humanity becomes overshadowed by personal belief rather than that which benefits society as a whole. It'll be interesting to see if the Wallists continue to gain significance and power. If so, I can see this being a contributing factor to open rebellion from the lower walls, as the refusal to alter the walls is akin to a death sentence for those in War Rose due to the class divisions that force the lower class to be closer to the walls and the Titans altogether. Again, we haven't seen a lot of them. This is just from what I have picked up in episode 14. This is just based on the language that is being used and the way that they are being presented. So I am very curious as to how the Wallists continue to factor into the show as it goes on. I'm open to having my mind change, but we'll see. We shall see. But it was just something that really struck and fascinated me. So I may have spoke too long on this matter, but as someone who grew up in a country where religion and politics were intertwined and seen the horrific outcome it has had on women and children as a result, it struck me on a personal level to see it represented very clearly as a system that discriminates and halts the progression of society as a whole, or at least in the case of the Wallists, attempting to halt the progression of society and humanity as a whole. The show is so much deeper than I ever expected it to be, and it brings up really interesting discussions around morality, ethics, and class in the way that I was not prepared for. Again, these are not my final thoughts on the show. I am open to re-evaluating my opinions. I'm open to re-evaluating my perspective as the show goes on and I learn more. These deep dives are based off of a single episode, what that show is hinting at, what that show is potentially attempting to show, and the contextual information that it is hinting at. Whether that changes as the narrative goes on, it probably will, because there's a lot of episodes still to watch. But this, again, is based on a single episode and is not my final thoughts that will never change. This is just my thoughts in the moment. I do intend to do an overall thought process of Series 1, of the themes in Series 1, of the character developments of Series 1, just so I can do a recap of everything that I think so far. So then when I've watched Series 2, I can rewatch the Series 1 and see where my mind has changed and discuss that, and also look at the themes that are brought up in Series 2 that maybe cross over, maybe differ, maybe contradict what I previously thought. This is the joys of analysing and researching. You learn, you are constantly learning new things, you are constantly re-evaluating your argument, and you are constantly having your mind changed on stances that you previously had. That is completely to be expected with shows like these. So bear with me. These are not my final thoughts. This is not my I'm dying on this hill and you can't change my mind. This is just what I am picking up thematically and what I think it refers to, and at times also relating that to contemporary society, which is why I do these longer outros, so that I can give my perspective on what I've watched, on the themes that I think is happening, on what I believe the writing is attempting to critique and show. And if that changes, give me the opportunity to acknowledge and talk about that as well, and why I think that's changed. It's part of the learning experience. You know, my final PhD had multiple copies that I referred back to, that, you know, sometimes there was an argument that I was like, I don't actually like that argument, it doesn't really align with what I think anymore. Hence why a PhD is like 4 years, because your mind constantly changes over 4 years. The more material that you read and the more that you learn and the more that you can, the more research that you do, the more your perspective changes, it broadens, you double down on certain arguments, or you can decide that that argument's no longer relevant, or you can see a different theme that you completely ignored last time. So these are just my reference points before I do my overall discussion of Attack on Titan when I finish the show, and I can deep dive into what I believe the show is talking about now that I've seen the entire thing, what themes I believe were prevalent, what themes I was maybe thought was right, but after reviewing the series isn't right anymore, and the character development and how that progresses. It's all a learning curve. That's the way I want you to see these outros, is reference points for the inevitable final video that will happen when I've watched the entire series and rewatched. And I think that's the best way to look at it, is there a jumping off point that I can refer back to at a later point. I hope you guys enjoyed this longer outro to episode 14, and it maybe gave you a new perspective into looking at the episode and some of the themes that were mentioned. If you did enjoy this video, please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment below to help boost this video into the algorithm. And until next episode, bye!